3, 2, 1.
Card review. You're such a jerk, dude. You're out.
We'll do
You're
it
fired.
again. We'll do it again.
No. We'll do it live. Okay. Hey everyone. I'm Cody.
Amanda.
Losers I don't know.
Hey, I actually did it with
We're
you.
MTG Knights. So today we're going to be talking about land.
Your MTG Knights.
Yeah. Triggered. So we'll be talking about land and just kind of how it's changed over the years, but mostly kind of what we all think of different lands and what we use for our decks, because it's situational. I mean, if you have like a mono color, some of these are not even worth it, but more of the dual color, or depending on what the theme of your deck is. So I wanted to start off just talking about like how it started off. I mean, there was just the 5 basic ones: Plains, Island, Swamp, Mountain, Forest. And then, you know, for the 5 basic, and then for colorless, you could use anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then eventually they came out with the lands that produced colorless, like the wastes or deserts, which I think is interesting because now they have like all these subtypes, and the wastelands look pretty awesome.
Yeah, like
being
the full art
art cards. I think that's pretty cool that they came out with lands to produce that colorless. So it's like colorless used to just be whatever you wanted, but then they came out with lands for that. And then you kind of move into some of these more like one-off lands, like the colorless lands, like the lands that are colorless, like the Reliquary Tower, which gives the effect of having no maximum hand size. You tap for a colorless land. Or Drownyard Temple, which I think is actually a highly sought-after card. Gives you the colorless land, like the mana, but then you can also return it from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. So if someone destroys that for whatever reason, or if you sacked it yourself, you get to bring it back. But what I think is interesting is just that they're colorless, and so
And they're not old, right? Like those aren't.
No, these are newer cards.
Well, not that one, but these two.
Yeah, and then Dark Steel Citadel, which is an artifact land, which you don't see a lot of, and this is actually banned in the Marauded block. So if you play with Marauded series, it's banned. But I just think it's interesting how they went from like the basic ones, into the subtypes, into kind of the colorless and all that. But what I really wanted to talk today about for subtypes of land was fetch lands specifically, but also dual lands in general. And I think that this is kind of good because we've got a mixture that we actually all use. Well, some of us, but
all the pink ones are mine.
yeah, so the first one we'll talk about is the shock land. So this is Temple Garden. It's the green-white shock land, and basically it pays 2 life, or if you can pay 2 life and it doesn't enter tap. Now I have a question regarding that. I don't know if you want to address the question now. Or...
Is that why it's called Shockland? Because it deals the damage?
Yes. Okay. So it's basically into the lands that you pay 2 for it to not enter tapped. Those are the shock lands. And it's really, I mean, so you can get that land right away, white or green, so if you need it. And then you kind of move into some of the more simple dual lands, like the earlier ones.
Do you have a question about this one, or do you have questions leading into these?
We'll come back to my question because it deals with this and the fetch lands.
Okay.
So then there's other ones like Temple of Malady, which enters the battlefield tapped, but you also get to scry, so scry land. And then the Guild Gates, which are gates on top of being lands, but both of them enter tapped. So it's like, I guess I was going to ask a question. I'll go ahead and ask it now. Do you think it's worth it to have these dual lands that enter tapped?
So the gates, because there's cards that if you have gates, I mean, then it's like worth it. But I don't know, it depends on when you draw them. So if you draw them early on and you really don't have cards to play, then it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter if it's coming in tapped or not, because I don't really have cards to play. But it's later in the game where it's like, oh, I need that land, and it's coming in tapped, that hurts.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think, Austin?
I think it's kind of worth it. It has like an ability when it has battlefield, like how this one,
the scry.
And other ones where it's like it deals a damage to an opponent or you gain a life.
Yeah. So it's like, so even though it's coming in tap, you're still getting an additional ability. So it's not like it's useless that turn. Yeah, and I would probably go with that argument too, depending on which ability it was, right? I think probably, because there's the other ones where, yeah, like you said, you get a health or they lose life, you know, there's a lot of the different dual lands. I think the scry one probably could be pretty strong because you're at least getting to see what your next card is. So like if your next one's a land, then, you know, you're okay, but, you know, if it's a card you need, you know, you can move it. So yeah, I would agree with that. So, but that was probably, that was the other thing I was going to say, I was going to agree with you with, was at the beginning of the game, like if it's your first land and you can't play anything, yeah, sure, you put the dual land down, it's going to come in tapped. I mean, whatever, you just move on. Or late game, you know, if you've already got your 6th land down and you play a dual land, well, I can't really use the land anyway, but it's going to give me mana next turn. So it's like they're a double-edged sword. So they're great, but yeah, they're coming in taps. So it's like,
that's why I don't carry those. Like in my
the
deck,
regular,
I don't carry the ones that come in tapped because
unless
I want to be able to like use it right away. Yeah.
Well, and then that leads me into the more advanced dual lands. So these are kind of the basic dual lands, you know, where they're going to come in tapped either way, right? But then you get into some of the better tap lands. So the first one that we have here as an example is Sunken Hollow. So Sunken Hollow is actually a really valuable card.
Yeah, it's a black-blue.
Yeah, so it's actually an island swamp.
Yeah.
So because Sunken Hollow, so Sunken Hollow enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So this one is actually I think the battle land is what it's called. So if you already have 2 out, then it doesn't come in tapped. So that's nice because most likely if you drew this in your first hand, you would just wait until you had 2 land down unless you had no choice, right?
Well, unless it's my first card.
Yeah.
Or it's my first turn and I have no other cards to play, I will play this first.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So it's like, at least this gives you the ability to not come in tapped. And then the Zendikar ones are the one I was talking about. They're so rare. The battle for Zendikar cards they're harder to get. So this one is actually really good. But the other part of that is that it says Island Swamp. So the effects where it says you get to pull an island or a swamp out of your deck work for that. So even though it's not a basic land, if it doesn't say basic land, but it says island or swamp specifically, you get to pull this card. So it's like another...
I don't have cards like that.
Added, well,
but
even if you did,
that makes sense.
It's got that bonus added effect.
Okay.
Did you have anything else?
I think it's a good card even late game because it's 2 or more. So like the ones that just enter tap, if you draw it late game, you can use it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why. And then there's other ones where it's actually 2 or fewer. And so I don't remember which ones those ones are. But yeah, there's ones where it's 2 or fewer. And I think those are great. If you pull them on your first hand, you get to put it down, right? But I think more likely you're probably going to pull it later when you already have stuff down. So it's like, it's going to hinder you because you get it later, then it's going to come in tap. So
you're talking about the 2 or fewer.
2 or fewer, yeah. And then the next one is the Drowned Catacomb. So the Drowned Catacomb enters the battlefield tap unless you control an island or swamp. So this one is actually a check land.
So would this count for that?
Yeah.
Yes.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Mind blown. I didn't know that.
That's why I say that the battle lands are so powerful because
I didn't know that. Like I mean, normally I have an island or a swamp out. I didn't know that this would be okay with that. Okay.
I know that, and that's why I'm making this video because
that's awesome.
It's so powerful, and people like maybe who are new to Magic, you know, we're learning this as we go, you know, so that would help someone else. So the Drowned Catacomb is actually a check land. So it checks to see if you have one or the other on the field. That is an island swamp, so that would count towards that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That helps me now. But these 2 cards, like I think I run the max that I can for these in my deck because of them. So
and they're good.
it helps. Because there's times where I can't get the blue or the black out that I need.
Yeah.
So
okay.
they help.
So those are good. I mean, a lot of those are pretty common. I guess it depends on what set you're playing, because some of them aren't legal in some sets. But as far as cards go, they're both really good cards. So then the other one was the Shocklands, where you pay 2 and it doesn't enter tapped. This leads us last to fetch lands. Now there are other cards that we don't have here that are other specialty, like dual lands or specialty lands, like the Urza cards. But the ones I really wanted to get to today was the fetch lands. So obviously there's the basic fetch land, the Terramorphic Expanse,
Evolving
and
Wilds.
Evolving Wilds, where you put it down, you tap it and sacrifice, you get a basic land card on the battlefield tapped, right? But there's the better lands that are super expensive, and those are the actual good fetch lands, which are the ones where you pay 1 life and sacrifice it, and you get one or the other. So you get like a red or blue. So you get a forest or a mountain.
Tapped?
No.
Not tapped.
That's
Because I was going to say,
because
I'm
you
not going
pay
to
them.
pay a life if it's going to come out
that's
tapped.
that's why these cards are so expensive.
Oh.
So these cards are ranging from like
But
$30
these
to
are worth
$90.
These were worth putting in the deck, because before I was like struggling to just get land out. Once I started running with these in my deck, like it was, now I average 4 or more land.
And that was actually something, that's a topic I want to come back to talk about with strategy. So the last thing I was to say about the fetch lands is that there's obviously ones for all the different color sets. Like I want to get the red and green, which was, I don't remember.
There are fetch lands that are dual colored?
No, I can't remember. They are, yeah, because they pull out one or the other.
Oh.
But now with the Modern Horizons, has a card I was telling Austin about. It's called Prismatic Vista. Prismatic Vista. And it basically is a kind of a catch-all. So you play it and you get to pull out any basic land. So you pay the 1, you tap it, sacrifice, and then you get any basic land, but it doesn't come tapped. So your deck thinning, it's a better version of Evolving Wilds, because now you're getting that card on the field untapped. So that's actually a newer card that's out now that you can get, that basically is a better version of that. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about, was some of the different lands that you can get. Obviously, some of them, like the fetch lands, are highly sought after because you're paying the land, but you get that land. The whole point of it, obviously, with the fetch lands is that you're thinning your deck. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So the first thing I was going to talk to you guys about was deck thinning. So putting in fetch lands, whether it's Terramorphic, whether it's like if we had the good fetch lands, whatever. Do you think that deck thinning is worth it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because if that's like one of the only lands you have, then you can play it first turn. If you have nothing else to play, then if you have nothing to play first turn, you play that and bring out a land.
What about you?
Well, yeah, but
what are your thoughts on playing, like, okay, so if a lot of people don't have the good fetch lands because they're kind of expensive, or you have to open a bunch of packs to get them, running Terramorphics or Evolvings, what do you think about that? Yay or nay?
Well, I find that it's worth it because you have landfall.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so when you have cards that have landfall, you definitely want fetch lands in there, because you're basically playing 2 lands per turn, and that, it makes it worth it, because now you're having 2 effects.
The double crop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then.
And see, landfall is not something. Yeah, we hadn't talked about landfall, but that's a good point. Obviously, if you've got a deck with landfall, you want to proc that. Like Sage has landfall to increase her creatures to make them stronger. use
I have landfall to mill people out.
To mill people out. So,
and that's, I mean, that's worth it because if you get two or more of the creatures out that have landfall, that's, for instance, the Hedron crab. If you get two of them out, that's 2 times per card they're having to discard or having to put cards
it's
into
a
their
double
graveyard.
proc.
Yeah, so I mean that's 12 cards on 1 turn.
Yeah.
That's almost
So-
as much as startled.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's right up there with just playing one of my glimpses. So it's worth it when you have landfall. If you don't have landfall, I feel like it just takes up space in your deck.
But see, the whole idea behind the deck setting is that you're actually you're getting rid of that space in your deck. You know what I mean? So every one of these you put in, you're taking another card out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, it depends on obviously the deck that you're running. For me, like I run a monocolor deck, so there's no point in putting these in. Like I can just run
No,
red.
because all your land.
Well, all of my creatures are red.
Yeah.
So there's no point in having other colors. I want red and green for some of the abilities of my creatures, but I essentially run just mountains because there's no point in that.
In a dual deck, yeah, it's gonna make sense. I mean, the red and black one, I think I only have 4 of these, and that's it. And it does help. It helps early game. I think once you're so far into the game, if you don't have the land that you need when you're so far into the game, it's just gonna be fun.
So it reaches
you're
like
barely hanging on
a point of diminishing return.
Yeah. So what was the game? We played a game where I had 3 of these in my hand, but I already had like 8 land out. So at that point, I just had useless cards in my hand. So
makes sense. So yeah, I mean, if you've got a landfall deck or a dual color, that kind of makes sense.
So yeah, because I was gonna say the black and red one doesn't have any landfall, but it does help me pull out swamps because I have more mountains than swamps, so it helps me pull out my swamps faster. So.
What do you think, Austin? You think it's worth it to run fetch lands, or why?
Because like she was talking about landfall and like how she was talking about landfall, and I have more islands than mountains, but I don't run any of those, and I always have trouble getting land, and it seems that they're good.
So like they come in a pinch. So if you're like in a drought of a specific color, then it helps you. I think that's right. Like landfall decks, obviously you probably want at least 4, right? My biggest argument was just that it gets cards out of your deck, because then you're not just taking the 1, you're taking 2. But the counter argument to that is that okay, you could just not put those in, run leaner on land, and put more good, decent cards or low cost cards that you could play with less land. Because I mean, ideally, any deck, could probably run off of 20 land.
Yeah, but so like for the black and blue deck, struggled to get land out before we started playing the fetch lands. Once we got the fetch lands in, I don't think I've played a game where I struggled to get land out.
Cool. All right, so generally how many land do you guys run? I forget, because I think yours is 21, I think was yours.
21 in the blue and black.
I either have 20 or 21.
20, 21.
And I have 22 in the red and black.
And what do you think about those numbers? Like, do you think yours is enough? Like, what do you think is a good number for most decks? I feel like 22 is probably the sweet spot. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously every deck changes. I think for mono, it's a little easier to run lean because you don't have to wait for the other color, right? So for me, I think I run it either 20 or 21. I don't have any fetch lands at all.
That's still almost the same.
But it
it's
changes.
the same for a duel.
I mean, those 2 cards could be spells that do something else.
Yeah.
So that 2 card difference could make a difference. I mean, obviously, I think with monocolor, you could probably. I think from what I've seen on like pro players, mono decks tend to run leaner than dual color or tricolored decks, just because you're relying that you're gonna pull those cards. But the trade-off is that if you notice, cards that are dual or tricolored tend to be stronger for the cost than monocolored. So if you look at colored like cards, like if you had a monocolored card versus a card, let me give you a good example. So for Spike Jester, it costs 2,
but it's
a black red. It's only 2, but it's a 3 cost with haste. So that's 3 damage with 2. That's pretty good for a single card to do that much damage early on. But for me,
it's a dual color. Okay.
Yeah, but for me, like my highest damage-wise is Ash Zealot, which is a 2/2. Now there might be other single mono
Your
red
vexing costs 1.
That's true.
And that does 4 damage.
But you could
If
you could
yeah,
leave
if
it,
you leave it,
or you
Yeah.
could counter it. So I mean, but my point is that if you look at the higher cost cards, the ones that are dual or tricolored tend to be stronger for the cost or do more. Because it's like, okay, well you're rewarded with getting all that land out. All right, here's your reward. It's a super good card, right? Just generally, that's not obviously all the case. Depends on the cards, the decks, all that. But yeah,
No, it's true because I mean, if you look at the mill one, you have Glimpse that costs 2 and it's a dual, and it does 10. Breaking is a dual and does 8. Dream Twist is a mono, costs the same amount and only does 3.
Exactly. So you're rewarded with that 2 color. So if you notice that, like a lot of it's kind of like the red-white deck. Like you got Boros Charm, right?
Yeah.
I don't have anything like that. That's a 4 cost like that, right?
Boros
So
Charm is a 2 cost, I think.
is it 2?
That does 4
But it
damage?
does 4
Yeah.
damage, and
Wow.
that's exactly
That's
what
one
I'm
of the,
saying.
it has like multiple abilities.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. So that card for the cost is great, but it's because it's a dual color. I don't have anything like that in red.
Oh,
So
that makes sense because Terminate
is a red
is a
black.
dual color and it destroys any creature.
And
But
blinding.
Go for the Throat is just is non-artifact. So there's restrictions to it and it's a monocolor, but the dual color one, anything. So and Lightning costs 3.
But it does 3
And it
damage,
does do
and
3
they
damage,
have to discard, right?
Yeah,
Is
they
it-
have to discard.
So it's like, so that's, if you've never noticed,
I
that's the
haven't,
trade-off.
but okay.
So that's why, not always, but the decks with 2 or 3 colors tend to run more land because they have to get those lands out, right? Or they'll run these dual lands or the fetch lands or something like that. Okay, so now, so then I was going to talk to you about paying the cost for a land to come out untapped. Do you think paying for the high fetch lands like Prismatic Vista for a
Are you talking about with your life?
Yes. So paying life for a land or the shock land, which you just pay 2 and this doesn't come in tapped, but you get green or white. So do you think paying life to get a card or mana that turn, either color, is worth it?
I think it's a good early game, but not so much late game. Like if you've lost a lot of health, like early game it's good. Unless you have like a life game deck like mine, then.
So like if you're gonna recoup that
Yeah.
in like a couple of turns, that's not a big deal. Makes sense. What about you?
I was gonna say, I guess it just depends on, do you really care if you're just losing life? In like, I don't, like he said, he has the deck, the life link.
Like sustain.
Yeah, so he can get all that back. But if you're running a deck where you have like no way to do damage to other people and you're just taking damage, I don't find that to be.
So
worth it.
I was reading an article earlier about this actually. And that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to touch on the land thing. But they were talking about the good fetch lands where you pay the life, you sacrifice it, you get that. You get either one of the colors you want, and it doesn't come in tapped, right? So they were talking about how it obviously depends. And that's always the answer for everything, right? It depends. But the big thing that we're saying is like, yes, it depends on what your opponent is playing. So if you're playing me and I'm playing an aggro deck, that one life could be the
Means
difference
a lot,
between
yeah.
winning or losing.
Yeah.
But if I was playing, say, Sage's mono green ramp deck, where it's going to take her like 4 to 6 turns to get something out that's worth it, then that one life could not be a big deal. Or if we're playing like Harmony, who has the blue control deck, where she's just tapping, like keeping everything tapped, or pacifying or whatever.
Claustrophobia.
Yeah. So if you have that kind of deck where you're not worried about that one life, it could be a game changer.
Yeah.
Because you could get the one thing that you need to make that happen. You know what I mean? So I would say that they are worth it, but probably not going overboard with it. So like maybe two of them, makes a lot of sense. I know some people try to run 4 because, life is just a resource.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you can get those cards out, or you can get the specific colors you need, could be the difference in the game, depending on what you're running. So it probably, depends on your opponent and what you're currently running.
So is it worth it to run those and try to put lifelink cards in your deck, or life-getting cards in your deck?
Not if your deck isn't built to do that automatically. So like, I would say no. And there's decks that people build that don't run the good fetch ones. I mean, they're expensive to buy if you don't have them, right? So then you have to kind of rely on some of these other decks or cards anyway. That's pretty much it. The last thing I was just going to ask was, out of these types of lands, what is your favorite? Like, what type of land besides basic? Do you just like running just basic land? Do you like running some of the fetches, some of these? What kind of lands do you like to run?
Well, I don't have any other ones except for basics, and one scribe, but I would like to run some check lands and some fetch lands.
The good ones,
Yeah.
Or the basic?
Both.
Both. What about you?
Well, Drowned Catacomb was like the first dual one that I ever put in my deck. But that's because I run with the islands and the swamps. The fetch lands, until a month ago, I wasn't running them in my deck. Once we put them in, I started to see the benefit of them, but it's the type of deck that I have. So it's paid off having fetch lands in my deck.
No.
But I only like the basic fetch lands because my life is like precious to me because I need to stay.
It's funny because that's what I was going to ask you. Like, if you could swap out the 4 basics for the 4 good ones,
No.
and use that land that turn, it wouldn't be worth it?
No, not with the life, because with this deck in particular, it is crucial that I have all my life.
Yeah.
And because mine's not built to last very long, so but like
when you get Crypt Incursion.
Yeah, unless I can get Crypt Incursion out, then it's worth it. But having I need my life, so for me it's not worth it to put cards in there that I have to pay my life for.
See, so I would see running a couple of okay, so if I was red and blue, the good fetch line for that is Scalding Tarn. Scalding Tarn. So I would see it running a couple, 2. Because if it was the difference of me having enough land to play Demigod, yeah, I'm gonna do it, right? But I would say more I don't think I could run these shock lands because 2 life, unless you're running decks that are going to give you that health back, I just think 2 life is too much for me personally. I could see running the good fetch lands, at least 2 of those. I could see that because it's all right, if getting this last card is the difference between winning or losing, yeah, I'm gonna pay that 1 life and end it. But you're right, running that 4, running 4 of those, that 4 health, that's a significant chunk if you're not getting it back.
I just find these more worth it.
Yeah.
When you're in a dual deck, these just make more sense.
Yeah. And see, what I like about the battle lands and the check lands is that like if you only had like 2 and 2, right? So 2 of each, and the rest was the basic swamps or islands. I mean, those are probably going to be fine. They're probably not going to enter tapped if you've already got mostly those. So it's like these are going to give you either one, so it's not going to put you in a bad spot. But ultimately,
I think I run 4 of these.
The drown.
But it's because there's times where like I'll get nothing but swamps out.
Yeah.
I need that blue, and these help me out.
So why not just swap those out for blue? Like that. I guess that would be my ultimate question. Like, if you're already running the dual colors, why not just go hard numbers of each one?
We did that,
Okay.
and we've tested it, and I struggle getting what I need out on the field.
Like that specific amount of
Yes.
the other one?
Because I have cards where you need the 2 blue and so many colorless.
And you always end up with the other ones?
Always end up with
Yeah.
swamp.
And
And so that's
I
when
can
these
see
come
that.
in handy, because then I have the ones where it's the opposite, where I need those swamps and all I have are islands. So this helps me out because
It's
now
the
I
curse
have
of
both.
the dual color, I think. It's
It is.
Yeah.
And that's where these come in handy, because then I'm pulling out my basic ones. But these make it worth it. I mean, I'm pulling more land now because I have these 3 types in there.
So ultimately, as opposed to just doing just basic lands, having the basic fetch, the check lands and the battle lands, having those in there, you think has made a difference,
Oh yeah.
as opposed to just going straight basics.
Like, I have almost all basics except for 1 dual land, which is the one that comes in tap and you get to scry 1, and I always have trouble getting land now.
Getting land in general, or the colors you need?
Getting land in general.
Why don't you have fetch lands?
Do you not run any basics? I would say split test it and just see if it makes a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, put in like 2 to 4 of them, and that's what I would suggest.
Well, that's what we
It's not
did.
right.
We tested it, and I noticed the difference running the fetch land in my decks, and that's when I was like, okay, this is working out better for me than it was before.
It's funny because like I was super excited about getting the good fetch lands, like because it doesn't come in tap, dude. That's so cool, and you're getting another card out of your deck. But like after kind of talking about it and like just playing in general, like I could see the use in having a couple of them, and unless you have cards that play off of them, there's really not a point. Running just the battle lands or the check lands, they seem to work really well.
Yeah.
Because if you've got these out, you've already got the other ones out. Like
You're using it that
then
turn.
yeah, you get to use it
Yeah.
that turn, and you're not paying any life. You're not stuck with it's coming in tap regardless. So like, I would see like if you're running a dual color deck, having a couple of those makes sense. I don't know. You said you run 4 drowns, I think, or
I think
3
I do.
or something like that.
I think I run
A
high on
few,
these. Yeah.
And that makes sense, because these ones at least, if you've got the other ones. I guess the Terramorphics would kind of depend on what your deck is. But I would say ultimately having a monocolor deck, none of this really makes sense.
Yeah.
Even the Terramorphics don't really make sense because I'm getting the type of land I need. And you can run leaner because every color you're going to pull is one that you can use.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I would
You
end
can
with.
test it out
For
in your deck.
for mono, just basic land unless you've got cards that play off of something else. And then for dual, some check lands, battle lands if you can get them. Maybe try a few basic fetches and see how that looks. I don't really use any of the other ones, the colorless or anything like that. But I don't run a colorless deck. So I
Do you
think for
use them in your
colorless,
colorless? Because I mean, your colorless is like full of so many different colored.
If the
lands.
deck was only colorless creatures, it would make sense. But having creatures that have other colors in it, I have to run lands.
The other
yeah.
okay.
So if it was completely colorless, sure. But in having like a deck that has colorless stuff in it, but other colors, then I have to put those other lands in there. So
I need this card. Can I have it?
The reliquary.
Yeah, you have no maximum
maximum
hand
hand
size.
size?
Yeah, I need that. Just gonna
Like
keep
it's
that.
good.
It's mine. I claim
It's
it.
good in certain circumstances. Like against your deck with your planeswalkers, they make them draw 20 cards. But they have no maximum hand size.
Yeah.
No, I'm keeping this just so no one else gets it. I'm just
Play
kidding.
it on yourself. And just give yourself 10
20 cards?
20 cards, whatever. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it.
Funny.
That's all I had.
That's terrible.
Did you guys have anything else?
You should put those in your deck and see
I
how
would, I would
it works out.
try, a few Terramorphics, because I mean, if you're struggling with getting land, I mean, that's going to not only give you land to your land count, but also help you get some extra cards out of your deck. So
Yeah, I don't like playing you when you only have 2 land.
Yeah,
It makes
like
the game
you
boring.
guys saw the game where I only had 2 land the whole game.
However, I did
could
beat
mulligan.
you. I
You
did
also
beat
could
you
mulligan
that one
and
time
try to get more land. So
with only 2 lands. So
Yeah, because you just kept playing 1/1s.
yes.
Anyway. Well, that's it for me. I don't know about you guys. So cool.
That's fun.
That's it for the video. Hopefully you liked it and enjoyed, and you can check out other videos, maybe subscribe and all that cool jazz. And I think we're out. See you.
Bye. Yeah, look at that tushy.
Nope.